first locked me in the basement, I thought it was just a punishment. But as each day passed, the darkness became my only reality. Searching for hope in whispers of escape, each moment filled with fear. Tales from beyond, a journey where truth and terror intertwine.
When he locked me in here for the first time, I thought it was just a temporary punishment. As the rusty door to the basement closed behind me, my breathing quickened, but I still had a small hope that my mom would come and get me out. Yet as hours passed, I realized I was going to be trapped here. Maybe forever. In a place without sunlight, time loses its meaning. Was it day or night? I couldn't tell. I just listened for footsteps, the creak of the stairs above me. Every time the door opened, I'd get hopeful, thinking this was the moment I'd be rescued. But it was always him, my stepfather. Each time he'd quietly take my food and stare at me, his gaze empty and chilling. Those brief encounters were the only thing reminding me there was still a world outside these walls. When I looked into his eyes, a wave of fear would wash over me, stopping my breath. I soon realized that behind his stare was something deeper than pain or trauma. It was a chilling anger, an anger cold enough to take pleasure in harming someone. Every night, as I sat alone in the basement's darkness, the same thought repeated in my mind. How was I going to escape? I started scraping the concrete walls with my bare hands, looking for any way out. My hands were torn, my nails broken from the nails I pried out of the walls, but I made no sound. If he heard me, he'd realize what I was doing, and I didn't know. Maybe he'd lock me somewhere I'd never see daylight again. Sometimes I'd hear voices, little noises, whispers, as if someone was there talking to me. Maybe it was just the loneliness playing tricks on my mind, but sometimes those whispers seemed to give me clues on how to escape. In the dark, I had no choice but to follow those hints. I managed to loosen one of the stones in the wall. It was the first glimmer of hope I'd had. I thought maybe there was an empty space behind it, but behind that stone, there was just another one, and then another obstacle. With each passing day, I grew more desperate, but at the same time, more determined to escape. One day, my stepfather came down with a flashlight. His face was illuminated by its cold, dim light. He didn't say anything, just pointed the flashlight at me, as if searching my eyes for despair. It felt like he was testing me, observing my reaction. He muttered something, but I couldn't make out the words. I don't even remember if I realized I was trembling. I was so terrified I couldn't move. Another day went by. As I looked at the small hole I was making in the stones, something unexpected happened. A faint beam of light hurt my eyes. Maybe someone had noticed, or at least that's what I hoped. I started digging faster, desperate to seize any chance I had. But just a few hours later, I heard footsteps again. The creak of the stairs made my heart race. This time, he'd notice. He'd see the hole, and he wouldn't let me out of here alive. But as those steps got closer, I pushed the fear aside and said the sharpest thought that came to mind. Please, I just want to see my mom. That night, the whispers seemed to reach me even stronger. It felt like the walls around me were talking, urging me to muster courage one last time. My hands, trembling, reached for the small hole I had made. The stones were barely in place. With a push, a faint beam of sunlight filled the basement. It was the first real daylight I'd seen in years. Then came footsteps from above. My stepfather's steps, slow and menacing as always. But this time, I was waiting for him. I sat calmly by the hole I'd made, gathering enough courage to shout, "If you don't let me out, someone out there could find out everything. I'm right here. Your secret is right here." There was a moment of silence. The lock on the door turned, and he entered with slow, heavy steps. But at that moment, I heard a different pair of footsteps and a familiar voice through the hole. "Elliot, are you in there?" It was my mom's voice. He had nowhere left to run. My stepfather froze, startled, and backed up against the wall. With all my strength, I yelled, Mom, I'm here. I'm in the basement. My voice echoed, carrying my hope to the outside world. The lock turned once more, and this time, it was my mom who walked in. The horror on her face made me feel safe for the first time in years. They caught my stepfather, and she pulled me out of the basement's darkness. Walking in the daylight again, feeling the ground beneath my feet, the cool breeze on my face. These things felt like miracles after so long. That day, my mom and I left that house and never looked back. My past would remain a nightmare behind me, but now I would always cherish the value of living in the light.